We are on the morning break in the questioning of undercover police officer HM118, who used the cover name Simon Wellings, the Field Daddy.
The Field Daddy. Yes.
I'm joined by Noel Douglas, who was infiltrated by Simon Wellings. First time we've seen him in 23 years, something like that.
Actually looks, aside from the grey beard,
yeah.
He looks exactly the same.
Yeah.
Totally recognizable.
I mean, the pigment seems he's less red-faced than the photos.
Yeah, I don't know what's happened there.
Yeah.
Maybe he's not speaking something fine.
Well, quite, yes. The majority of the questions have revolved around his recruitment, the early days, the lack of training. I mean, he's been very candid about the lack of training he had. He said that he was aware of 2 sexual relationships by undercover officers, James Thompson, who he overlapped with, and John Dines, which was historic, but he was aware that Helen Steele was chasing him to New Zealand. Yeah. What have you made of what he's had to say?
Well, I mean, I just think it's quite interesting with him, isn't it? Because he keeps saying, in fact, there's a couple of phrases I keep missing, but it's like, he looks at the judge and goes, if I'm remembering this right, or he kind of keeps sort of saying as if he's sort of struggling, but he wants to make sure he's correct. I mean, I just thought particularly the stuff where they were talking about the Tradecraft manual, and he was making out that when they highlighted the thing about if you have to have a sexual relationship, make sure it's short and disastrous. And he kind of was making out that. I thought
shocked.
and then that whole thing was, when I turned, as if you would remember this, I think, I turned to my colleague and I was like, is this from 30 years ago? So, it's just so transparently, it's like at the very start as well, where he said about the women who've been deceived and how horrible that was. I just feel it's like a real transparent attempt. Like almost weirdly the SDS's feminist.
Yes, yeah, very much. I mean, it was put to him that other undercover officers said it'd be very difficult to present as a single man, and that that there would be times where he was put under pressure about that. So there's any examples? There was a couple. He had 2 examples, both of which sounded like they were straight out of the scenarios that he talked about. Absolute perfect answers for how a proper gentleman should behave when presented with essentially what is no string sex, the woman he just met. Totally. I mean, I'm sorry, but he could have done he's not going to win any awards for any creative writing. I mean, you're just not credible stories in any sense of the word.
Absolutely. And also I mean, I just think he's and I thought it was quite interesting when he was talking about his mental health as well. I mean, obviously not that we have any sympathy for him, you know what I mean? Don't spy on us then,
Quite.
But it was quite interesting that he went at length about that. And again, I think that was also a play to the judge, I think, particularly to kind of for him to be sympathetic to him, I mean, it's and like I say, he's just full of these aphorisms all the way through, which is obviously how we found him out in a way, with guys something about the certain phrases he was using on the phone, isn't he? But he's such a sort of organisation man. He's such a someone's got to bring the tea kit. So the brew kit, and and all this sort of insider language,
No, he's very much. I mean, he's presenting himself as trying to be, he's like an open and candid sort of character, and he's like, forgive me for saying, I'm going to be quite blunt here, and all this kind of stuff. And he does keep turning to the chair. I mean, it is. I'm always reminded that that's actually what you're meant to do. The questions are being presented by the counsel to the inquiry, but you are actually delivering answers for the chair. So I mean, it's clear that he's been paying a lot of attention to the inquiry. And in a couple, I mean, it's even been said to him by Don Ramble, you are aware of what's been happening in the inquiry. He's obviously displayed that in some form or other before he's come and given and appeared on the stand. But he's given some examples that he's obviously got from the inquiry, and then sort of presented them as if he's not quite sure. Someone called Helen Steele, which I thought was a hilarious way of naming her, given the immense personal history that she has with this inquiry. I mean, it's as ever is the case with an undercover officer, you wonder when the facade is going to break down. Now, in his case, we've only got 2 days of questioning, so will we get this opportunity? I think Don Ramble is doing the much more chummy approach than we would get from David Barr, and like being a lot more sort of kind of, oh, what did you say then? Oh, and really, oh no, and then you said, and like leaving it open for him.
I mean, the difficulty is going to come from, isn't it? And that's where hopefully it'll get more interesting. Is that with the allegations against MD and the suicide bomber vest, things like that. Like the sexual stuff isn't his thing. I mean, that's the weird thing with him in a sense. It wasn't like really part of that. It is more the other exaggeration and lying. And when we get onto that, I'm hoping that's going to be where he might slip up, or it gets more difficult for him in terms of the questioning, because it's certainly from what we what we all did last week, I think it's going to be hard for him to sort of present that as his truth. You know?
Yes, very much. I mean, I think it's very interesting that when he was asked, did he know of any other undercover officers having sexual relationships whilst they were deployed, apart from James Thompson and John Dines? He said, no, pretty sure, no, not at all. Now, particularly that question was about undercover officers in general, not just SDS. And we know that he was very much present at times where Mark Kennedy, Marco Jacobs, and others from the NPORU were openly in relationships. Now, he hasn't been asked directly on that, but I think that question really covered it or enough. It should have been enough for him because it didn't say SDS. It was undercover officers in general. And I think that that needs to be explored in a greater detail. I wonder if they'll come back to that. I would hope they would come back to that and ask him very directly because, you know, we haven't got to his reports yet, but there has been disclosure reports that would suggest he's got a lot more to say about that than he's letting on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as I say, I just noticed the patterns of speaking, like all. To me, I mean, you know, obviously what we think anyway, but to me, he doesn't come across as being completely comfortable, and he keeps saying like, you know, if that makes sense, that makes sense. Like, you know, like, and you know, when you say, you know, I'm not trying to lie.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
You say these things that are really the kind of thing you're sort of trying to unconsciously you are trying to think, okay, how can I say this without saying this, or you know, what I mean,
to be honest, because up until this point, I haven't been. So to be honest, it's like, come on, mate. Yeah.
I remember correctly.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff about the fact that apparently, you know, he was newly married, had a very young child. When
he was quite honest about the money.
Yes, he was. Yeah.
That's the kind of again the crux from Barb arguments was that, you know, he was on a good wicket. He was basically getting loads of cash for doing, but basically almost nothing with us. Really.
Yeah, he said that his motivations for joining the SDS, a unit that he claims he didn't know existed until just before he applied, he made himself available to it. He said, you know, he was interested in joining, was that it was an elite unit that was seen as the pinnacle of the Special Branch, and also that there was a significant amount of overtime available, and that as he was newly married with a young child, this would be very useful to him. Buy a house. Now, I mean, he talks about the home visit which HN53 did on his wife and child, he kind of painted a picture of a baby essentially in that sort of scenario. He says that his wife was given a courtesy call every 24 hours by his cover officer while he was abroad, but there was no contact with the management whatsoever after that initial home visit. Apparently, he claims that there was at one point he was 25 days away with no home contact, which is quite impressive given that he seems to have such a limited actual impact on people's lives that he spied on. And he says though that he didn't feel confident enough to drop in and out of home life, so he didn't actually contact his wife while he was deployed, which because he couldn't cope with the psychological jump.
It was back to that. Oh, woe is me.
Yes. Yeah, and the idea that he was such a good family man, you know, it would have upset him to speak to his wife while he was deployed.
And how he was, you know, I had to go through life lying to everybody, you know, the news agent, you know, and all. I'm thinking,
and he's scruffy. He said, he'd have to stay scruffy all the time. He had to keep his piercings in.
He's got that kind of hilarious thing. I think again was a total like, you know, let's get the violins out where he's walking his kids to school or something with his wife, and one of his friends sees him and they wonder why, and he's so scruffy and he's ashamed, you know, that he's. And the thing was, he wasn't like. You know, he claims he had these piercings and stuff. I don't remember him having piercings. I mean, he wasn't like a kind of fashion victim, but he wasn't that scruffy as well. You know, I mean, it wasn't like he was like, I suppose for him, as you can tell today, he's very soon in the mood. So I presume I mean, that's the weird thing, isn't it? You realise, you know, really seeing him and, you know, like the picture we found of him Descent, you know, it really brings it home to you. These people were playing a role. And that they, you know, obviously, you know that they've deceived you, but they really brings them. They are this other person, and he obviously is quite a straight organisation man. Say from all his language, and all the, you know, do you know what I mean? It's very much he's an organisation boy, isn't he? You know?
Very much. It's only a short break. We should probably head back in. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, let's go back in.
Yeah, let's go. Please like, share this video. It makes a huge difference how many people see it. If you can subscribe on whatever platform. We are doing regular updates on Twitter from inside the hearing room. You can just check out the hashtag SpyCops to find those. The video, he is not appearing on video. It's just audio, so you are able to listen in. We weren't made aware of that until we actually got into the hearing room. Very frustrating. It appears because he's got anonymity over his real name, he's also managed to get anonymity over his appearance. I would say he does look exactly the same, just smart. And yeah, and got quite a smart white beard almost, I would say. But yeah, all right, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you all at lunchtime. Bye for now.